Hello everyone, welcome to another movie night. How are you all? Today's movie is World War Z, an incredible story of a world that was overrun by zombies. House in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Two children enter their parents' room and jump on the bed to wake them up. Later, Gerry makes pancakes for his daughters, and his wife, Karen, tells Rachel, their older daughter, to grab her inhaler while Gerry watches on TV the chaos in the news, where a government has declared martial law in their country. Their younger daughter asks what that is and whether he has been in places like that in his previous job. He says yes, but that he gave it all up to be with them. Rachel brings the cone toy, and they head to school. On the way, they play a car game because they are stuck in traffic. Rachel wonders about the number of helicopters in the area, and Gerry turns on the radio. The news reports an outbreak of rabies that started in Taiwan and suddenly spread to other countries. A motorcycle breaks the car's side mirror, and Gerry goes to see what's happening. Suddenly, an explosion occurs further down the street, and a motorcycle police officer orders him back into the car when, out of nowhere, a truck hits him and drags everything in the street. Gerry starts following the truck, thinking it might be their way out of there. However, the truck following him crashes into another truck and flips over, but Gerry turns just in time to avoid a collision as well. He drives through the city, which is full of military personnel on the brink of a crisis. Gerry turns to tell Rachel to fasten her seatbelt, and when an ambulance hits their car, none of them is seriously injured. Gerry takes Cone out first, and then Rachel from the same side. The people in the streets are chasing other frightened individuals and relentlessly attacking them. A woman smashes the windshield of a car to reach the people inside it. Karen sees her biting a man and becomes terrified. Gerry tells them to run, and he watches the situation with the woman. The man who was bitten writhes on the pavement violently, as if he were transforming. Gerry places his family in a trailer while other people infected by something attack anyone they see on the street. One of them almost gets into their car, but Gerry drives quickly through the streets as his vehicle is attacked. Witnessing, they manage to reach a road outside the city, and there, Rachel starts having an asthma crisis. Karen, her mother, tries to calm her down and checks her backpack for a spare inhaler. Gerry stops the vehicle to talk to Rachel and guide her through the crisis. Karen can't find the medication and tries to call the trailer to leave and find a pharmacy, but it doesn't work. Gerry's phone rings, and the call is from an old colleague of his named Thierry. He tells Gerry that they barely managed to get out and that he also doesn't know what happened. Meanwhile, Cone finds a shotgun and Gerry quickly grabs it. Karen manages to get the trailer working and they leave the area. 5. They arrive in New York and head to a store that has already been invaded by people. They split up, with Gerry searching for supplies and Karen looking for medicine for Rachel. They encounter a man with a gun who asks what they need. He finds the medicine for them and hands it to Gerry along with something else that can help. Meanwhile, Cone starts screaming for him, rolling alone in a shopping cart. They rush to her and find her being confronted by two men. Gerry goes after her, and the men start shooting. He fires back and hits them. A police officer enters, and Gerry and Karen raise their hands, but the officer is only there to gather supplies as well. The family manages to leave the store and realizes that the trailer has been taken. Gerry then calls Thierry to inform him of their location, but he says he can only secure a helicopter for them at dawn. The family then decides to wait on top of an apartment building with flares. They reach the building, and the infected people in the streets start chasing them. Gerry manages to keep them at bay outside and then gathers his family to block the door as they run up the stairs. The infected break down the door and follow them in the confusion. During the chase, they lose Cone and go searching for her in the hallways. They find an open door with another family inside. Gerry and his family enter and communicate with the parents of that family through their youngest son, Thomas. Gerry picks up an emergency transmission on the radio. The message instructs everyone to stay indoors if possible, because an unidentified virus has spread throughout the state. After a while, Harry wakes up from a nightmare and hears something outside. He then finds Rachel and Thomas in another room, where the boy reveals that she was crying. Later, Gerry talks to the father and suggests that they have a better chance of survival if they go with them, but he declines the offer. Gerry and his family leave the apartment and hear the infected inside the building. They run towards the roof while Thomas's family discusses whether to go with them because the infected are at their door. Gerry and his family hide, fearing they'll be seen. The doors open and the infected attack instantly. They run down the stairs with Gerry fighting some of them, but more infected are chasing them. Meanwhile, a helicopter approaches the building but doesn't spot them. Gerry fights an infected person while Karen and the girls escape to the roof. Suddenly, Thomas arrives and saves him by killing an infected person who was about to bite him. On the roof, Karen lights the flares and the helicopter comes into view. Gerry manages to reach the roof with Thomas but soon distances himself from them to the edge of the building, fearing he might be infected. It takes him a moment to realize that he's not infected. Just then, he hears the infected getting close to the door and rushes to hold it shut. When the helicopter lands, Karen and the children board it, and a soldier covers Gerry's back so that he can reach the helicopter. They continue shooting at the infected who are trying to reach the helicopter and falling from the building. Moments later, the helicopter lands on a UN ship in the Atlantic Ocean, where Thierry receives them upon arrival and takes them to where they will stay and rest from the building. Moments later, the helicopter lands on a UN ship in the Atlantic Ocean, where Thierry receives them upon arrival and takes them to where they will stay and rest. After that, Thierry takes Gerry to the command center, and while they are on their way, Thierry informs Gerry that major cities around the world have been infected by the virus. Inside the command center, a group of experts is discussing the virus. Dr. Fastback believes that once they determine the virus's origin, they can create a vaccine. Thierry calls Fastback and tells him that their best option to discover what the virus is and where it originated is to send someone to South Korea. He talks to Karen and explains the situation to her. He gives her a cell phone and asks her to call him once a day, promising he will return. He then says goodbye to his daughters and Thomas. Gerry's plane then takes off. He tells the doctor that they will need to follow the soldier's orders and also asks him to bring attention to anything he deems important so they can make it happen. The doctor says that what appears to be the most brutal aspect of the virus ends up being its downfall. Meanwhile, the ship is relocating all non-essential personnel off the deck and redirecting them to other locations. The plane with Gerry and the others finally lands in South Korea. Although no one responds from the base to confirm whether they can open the hatch, it opens, and the team starts to exit. However, they hear something outside. They exit slowly, but the zombies begin to attack. Fastback becomes frightened and runs back to the plane. Unfortunately, he slips and falls on his own gun. Gerry explains about the memorandum with the word zombie that they received. They are then taken to a waiting room, which is all burned with several burnt bodies. There, they explain that all those were soldiers who tried to stop their doctor. But in the end, he bit all of them. The only thing they know about how he contracted the virus is that a soldier who had disappeared a week before had bitten him. So, when the doctor returned, he bit up to 15 men. Unfortunately, the documents that Gerry could use to trace the soldier who bit the doctor were also destroyed in the fire. A soldier tells him that one of their men was not attacked by the zombies even though he was in the midst of them. At this moment, Gerry sees a CEA agent in a cell and talks to him. He was selling weapons to North Korea, but tells Gerry that the weapons are only partial measures. The agent then pulls out his last remaining tooth and tells him that they are extracting all the teeth from the entire population in less than 24 hours to contain the spread in the country. Gerry is incredulous about this, and the man tells him that Israel is the only country fighting the war by building a wall around Jerusalem. He also tells Gerry whom he needs to find to learn more about what he needs to know. Gerry informs the pilot that they are heading to Jerusalem. The soldiers prepare Gerry and his team to board the plane, explaining that they have a comprehensive strategy for handling the plane's refueling. Gerry and his team ride bicycles to the plane, with soldiers surrounding the base with elite snipers to cover their backs. Spike tells them through the radio that they must be silent and get to the plane before it can bring the fuel. However, as they proceed, Karen calls Gerry, and the phone ringing awakens the zombies. The men continue with the infected chasing them. Spike knocks down a group of them with a fuel truck, and the refueling begins. While Gerry and his team fight the zombies in front of the plane, an infected attacks Gerry. But Spike saves him, though he gets bitten in the process. Gerry is being boarded. He decides to end Spike's life before he can turn, and he sadly watches him do it from the plane. A member of his team goes out to disconnect the fuel hose, while Gerry enters the cabin, locking the door behind him to prevent the zombies from getting in. When they take off, the zombies fall from the back of the plane. Gerry calls Karen and tells her they are now heading to Israel. She informs him that the children are okay when suddenly there is a nuclear explosion several kilometers away from the plane, and the call is lost for a while. After, the plane approaches Jerusalem, and they request immediate permission to land. A United Nations envoy is sent to speak with them. Gerry instructs the pilot to stay with the plane, and that he will return before nightfall. He is then escorted to meet a man named Jürgen Warmbrunn, who tells him that it is human nature not to believe something can happen until it has already happened. Gerry asks him how Israel found out about everything and had time to prepare, and Warmbrunn explains that they intercepted communication from an Indian general mentioning the fight against zombies. Gerry doesn't believe that was the only thing that convinced the Israeli government. Warmbrunn then explains that in the 1970s, they developed a strategy that involved one man always disagreeing with the other 9 who arrived at the same conclusion on something. The 10th man had to take the position that the others were wrong. As everyone else assumed that zombies were just an invention for something else, he had to work on the premise that it was true. He tells Gerry that there are many possible origins of the infection, but no one knows for sure where the virus originated. They finally arrive at the Great Wall, where they allow people to enter the city and survive in larger numbers. Zombies gather around the wall, while inside, people begin to celebrate their potential salvation. As the singing gets louder, it starts to attract the zombies to the wall. They begin to climb it, piling on top of each other. Meanwhile, Gerry asks Warmbrunn what he should look for in India. But the agent tells him that what he can look for is just a way to hide at the moment. The zombies swarm over the wall while the celebration continues, but the authorities realize something is happening. Zombies start entering Jerusalem, both inside and outside the city, as helicopters attack from the outside, but it makes little difference. Warmbrunn tells Gerry that his men have taken him to his plane, but the zombies are advancing furiously in the city, and the Israeli army can't do much about it. Gerry runs with the constant pursuit of the zombies until a soldier activates a grenade. Meanwhile, Gerry's plane's pilot is informed that the city has been invaded and the zombies are heading to the airport. An infected swarm follows Gerry and the officers, causing havoc. He looks out the window and sees something unlikely: a child completely ignored by the infected. The officers continue to fight the zombies, and Gerry hides. They activate more grenades, and one of the officers kills the last remaining zombie nearby. However, she gets bitten in the process, and when Gerry sees the mark, he quickly cuts off her hand, preventing the virus from spreading. She loses a hand, but, in return, doesn't turn into a monster. With their plane already in the air, they prevent the other plane from taking off. Only Gerry and Sagan manage to enter the cabin. The pilots don't know where to go, and are looking at the map when a horde of zombies surrounds the plane. Fortunately, they manage to take off in time. Once in the air, Gerry looks down at the city and watches as it is devastated by the zombies that entered. He finds something for Sagan, changes her bandage, and finally wraps her arm. He tells her that he wasn't sure if cutting it off would work. Suddenly, Gerry remembers the story about one of Captain Speak's men who wasn't attacked by the zombies. He realizes what he must do and calls Karen, telling her to find Thierry. Gerry tells him that he needs to locate a research facility nearby, but Thierry needs to know where he is. Gerry knocks on the cabin door and hands his phone to a pilot. After a conversation with Thierry, the pilot tells him they will go to a city where there's a chance to reach a WHO research facility. Gerry is almost falling asleep when he hears a dog barking in the distance. However, when the flight attendant opens the cargo compartment, the dog escapes, revealing itself to be a zombie that attacks her. Gerry suspects that something is wrong and goes to check what is happening. He realizes there's a problem and asks the passengers to stay quiet. They work together to block the door with anything they can find. One of the passengers accidentally drops a bag, alerting the zombies who invade that section as well, causing a lot of damage. Gerry fights against the zombies and is almost bitten when Sagan shoots the zombie behind him. She continues shooting, and Gerry finds a grenade in the center of the explosion, which he quickly throws to the back of the plane. The explosion causes significant damage, and the pilots have to make an emergency landing. Gerry fastens the seatbelt for Sagan and himself, and as a lone zombie attacks them while the pilots prepare for impact, the plane breaks into pieces upon landing. Later, Gerry wakes up, still strapped to his seat, and sees that Sagan is no longer in hers. She is severely injured from shrapnel, but manages to free herself from the seat. Suddenly, Sagan appears, and they find a way to the WHO safe zone. Meanwhile, on the UN ship, the general is informed that they lost contact with Gerry's plane at Cardiff Airport. Karen is then called to speak with Thierry, who talks to his commander and is told to remove Karen and the children from the ship. Gerry and Sagan are in the facility. Gerry is experiencing hallucinations and nightmares. He wakes up with his wound bandaged and sees someone sitting next to him. When he wakes up, the man consults someone in another room. They return and ask who he is, then hand him a phone, telling him to make a call to identify himself. Thierry is surprised to see that Gerry is alive and introduces him to the men. Before they can respond, Gerry asks about Karen and the children. Thierry explains what happened to his family. Later, Gerry is released, and they bring Sagan to see him. They inform him that his family has been sent to a refugee camp, but Gerry is worried that they won't be safe there. The chief doctor from the WHO asks what he needs, and Gerry is led to the team. He requests the most lethal virus with a high mortality rate because he wants to use it against the zombies. They tell him that the undead cannot get sick, but Gerry explains it's not for the zombies, it's for the humans. He believes that the zombies' weakness is their inability to infect terminally ill hosts, which is why they avoid attacking them. Using a deadly pathogen wouldn't be a cure, but a disguise. One of the doctors understands his reasoning and explains that the only way to prove this would be to confront a zombie face to face. Gerry is informed that they have all the viruses, but they are stored in Wing B, which is infested with around 80 zombies. Another doctor tells him that the zombies in Wing B are dormant at the moment and shows him how to get there. Gerry and Sagan prepare to go to Wing B to retrieve the viruses. They also arm themselves, despite the doctor's advice not to kill any zombies as it makes the others more aggressive. The three of them then enter the corridor, and the lead doctor instructs his subordinates. The doctors in security monitor them in another section. Gerry enters first, and the lights come on as they slowly walk through the facilities. Accidentally, they make some noise, stirring up the nearby zombies. When they reach a laboratory with glass doors, Sagan moves to the other side first, followed by the doctor, and finally Gerry, without alerting the zombies. They proceed to the vaults, but the noise from the swinging door wakes the zombies. They hurry past and reach the vaults, but there is a zombie below, which they also notice. Sagan shoots it, causing all the other zombies to rush toward them. Gerry distracts the zombies so that the rest can reach the vault. Most of the infected become trapped behind a door, with only one managing to follow Gerry, whom he neutralizes with relative ease. Suddenly, another zombie appears, and Gerry eliminates it too. Sagan and the doctor reach the vaults, but find more zombies. They run and are pursued outside. The other doctors open the doors for them, despite being chased by a group of zombies. They can barely keep the door shut, but manage to close it. While escaping, Gerry manages to reach the vault where the viruses are stored. He enters and tries to open the door. When the phone rings, it's the doctor who provides him with the password. Gerry can enter, so he takes all the viruses that fit into a box. Suddenly, a zombie appears at the door, and Gerry has no choice but to inject himself with one of the viruses. He leaves a message for his family, prepares the viruses, and injects them into his arm. Gerry waits for the virus to take effect while the infected is still outside the vault. After some time, he decides to open the door. The zombie enters but doesn't attack. His idea worked, and Gerry drinks a can of soda, then activates a mechanism in the room to distract the zombies, making them move in the opposite direction. He walks back to the main facility without the zombies causing him any problems. The doctors give him a vaccine, and he exits the facility with Sagan. Later, Gerry goes to look for his family in the refugee camp, and they are all waiting for him. In the meantime, his idea spreads worldwide. The World Health Organization, WHO, develops a vaccine that works as camouflage, helping people become invisible to the zombies. This gives humanity a chance to fight them. Humans also devise complete strategies to combat zombies using fire or bombs. Survivors come together and prepare for a war that is just beginning.